Hi everyone, Michelle with Next Chapter Counseling. I got a question from someone this week who was actually asking a question about a friend of theirs. And they told me in their question that their friend has been in this on and off relationship for quite some time. And to really boil it down, the question that they asked me was, why is my friend staying in this relationship? So I'm going to go through today some of the common reasons that I see for why people stay in relationships that are on again, off again. This can be baffling for a lot of people, especially when you are like a close friend or family member and you're seeing this play out in front of you, and you're just probably wondering, like, why can't they open their eyes and see what I see? Why do they keep going back to this person over and over and over again? I don't get it. So my goal today is to hopefully shed some light on this. So this will be a good video for you if you're like the person who wrote in the question and you're witnessing this from someone else in your life, or if you know that you're kind of in a relationship like this, like you guys have already broken up and gotten back together once or twice, and you know that you guys are kind of an on again, off again couple, even if you don't really want to face that or accept that because it's the person that you love. But these are some common reasons for why people can kind of stay in this dynamic, so to speak. The first reason is honestly, there's a lot going on up here chemically in our brains when we fall in love, when we break up, and when that cycle repeats over and over again. So when you're first falling in love, there's a whole lot of, I call them feel-good chemicals that are released in your brain, such as dopamine and a whole bunch of other ones that come along with that. And basically, when we're falling in love, right, the world is great. We have our rose-colored glasses on. We love this person. They can do no wrong. You guys know what this is like. So, right, we go through that falling in love stage. And then what happens is if you stay in that relationship, eventually those brain chemicals die down and you get settled into the relationship and you go from there. With a couple that's on again, off again, they're going through that cycle over and over and over again. So you fall in love, things are great, then things turn sour, you break up, but then a little while later you're making up. And then it's like you're falling in love all over again. The brain literally does the same thing. Even if it's with the same person, it goes through the same releasing of those feel-good chemicals. So some people can get really hooked on this without realizing it. It feels so good to fall in love. There's this idea of, making up and how good that feels after things have been maybe rough with your partner for a while. That's what they are going through. So chemically, this can be a hard thing to let go of because all of those chemicals being released in our brain just feel really, really good. So that's a big reason why people stay in on again, off again relationships, because it's a continual cycle of releasing those feel-good chemicals in their brain. So that's one reason. The second reason, to be quite frank, is because they believe it's going to be better this time around. Now that, they've broken up and now they're looking at getting back together, well, it's going to be different this time around. And these are the reasons why. Now, you've probably seen, if you're an outside observer, that this isn't the case. It doesn't really get better, but they think it's going to. And so it is one of those things where when someone's holding on to that belief and that hope, it's really hard to get them to let go of it. Even if there's not much evidence to substantiate their partner actually getting better or doing something different, they're still believing in this relationship. In the addiction realm, they call it hitting rock bottom. That's the point where the person who is addicted actually finally decides to give up their drug of choice and get help. It's the same kind of an idea in a relationship, honestly, is the person has to get to a point where they hit rock bottom and they realize that this relationship isn't getting better, that the bad does outweigh the good, and that it's time to move on and end things for good. The reality is, like speaking to the person who asked this question, your friend isn't there yet. And it may unfortunately take some things getting worse in this relationship before your friend has actually had enough and truly gives up hope. But that's a big reason why people keep going back to their partners, is they believe that things are going to get better, even if they're not actually getting better. It can keep people, fighting for a relationship for a long time, even when the relationship stopped being healthy. And kind of hitting on that note of healthy versus unhealthy relationship, the third point that I want to make is that one of the reasons also why people can stay in on again, off again relationships is because of some of the messages that society gives us about love that are well intentioned, but sometimes get misconstrued. So, one of these messages that's talked about a lot in society nowadays is that like relationships take work. This is a common thing that we hear, and to some extent, it is true. It takes work to maintain like emotional and physical intimacy in a long term relationship with all the stresses of life going on around us all the time. That's not an easy thing to do. But what's happened with that expression is that people have taken it and they kind of view it as an excuse or a reason to stay in a relationship that's unhealthy and not working anymore. And they have this idea of like, well, I just have to put in the work. Like, no wonder it's hard. All relationships take work, kind of an idea. But the reality is that your relationship may not need to be this hard. And when you're in a healthy relationship, well, yes, it takes work. You're not going to be experiencing the emotional roller coaster, the ups and the downs, that an on again, off again relationship has. It's going to be relatively, hopefully, smooth sailing with some bumps in the road that you and your partner work through and solve together. And again, working through, I use the word work. It takes work, but it's not going to be as difficult or as emotionally draining or as demanding or all of that as an on again, off again relationship. And one of the other messages that I want to touch on real briefly that society talks about is this idea that, you want to have a long-term relationship. Divorce is so common in our culture that when you're a couple that stayed together a long time, people kind of admire you. People are in awe of that, like, oh my gosh, you've been together for this long. You see it start in high school. You get that high school couple that's been together all 4 years of high school, and people are like, oh my God, like they're a unicorn, kind of an idea. So if you, as the listener who may be in an on again, off again relationship, or again to the person who wrote this question who has a friend in this situation, your friend may fall into this category of maybe they've been in this relationship for a long time and they just don't want to give it up because they take some sort of pride in that. Like, well, I've been with this person for this amount of time and I'm not just going to let it go. And that can keep us really stuck and wasting a lot of time when people are in that mindset. So it's important to kind of check that. Is that why I'm staying in this relationship? Is because I take, pride, like it's like a badge of honor that, well, we've been together for this amount of years, even if it's been really hard all of those years. But this is a thing that happens. I actually wrote a blog about it a while ago, so I'm going to put that blog link in the description of this video if you want to read more. It's this phenomenon in our culture that, longer relationships are better, and it's just quite frankly not true sometimes. So you can read that blog if you want some more information. But yeah, those are kind of the three main reasons that I see. To sum it up, like when you go through that cycle of getting back together, you get dopamine and other feel-good chemicals released in your brain. You also hold on to the belief that they're going to get better, the relationship is going to improve. They haven't hit rock bottom yet. And also this idea that, relationships take work. And like, I don't want to give up when I've invested so much time. We've been together so long. I can't just let it go. Some of those messages are commonly bought into, and they can keep people in relationships that aren't really working. So those are some of the reasons that I see for why people stay in on again, off again relationships. If you have a question for me, send it to me at nextchapter.michelle@gmail.com, and I'll answer it in a future video. Thanks, guys. Bye.